If you can't stay in the moment during sex or you feel a lack of control, it might have to do with you not really knowing what turns you on. Hey guys, if you're new here, I'm Stephanie Ganowski, sexologist and sex coach for men. And if you've been subscribed, welcome back. So I'm sure you hear all the time that being present is the thing you gotta do when it comes to having great sex, right? And it's good advice. However, we have different sex phases in life. So let me explain what I mean. What turned you on as a 20-year-old, physically and or mentally, may not really do it for you as a 30, 40, or 50-year-old. And that's totally okay. Because we learn and we experience different things in life. So it's perfectly normal for our pleasure to change as our life changes. And it's why communication with your partner around sex is especially important. Her body changes over time and your body is changing over time. So sex is not a place for guessing games if you want to be great at it. And maybe you do generally keep the same turn-ons, but the things that really used to turn you on, like 2 or 3 years ago, only do it for you a little bit now. And there's something else that gets you really turned on. And I'm not saying this has to be like a bigger dopamine hit. I'm not talking about you need something more intense and freaky. I'm just talking about simple changes. Like to be tickled versus scratched. You don't really love making out, you love being massaged a lot more, right? Like these aren't huge leaps and jumps. This is why it's good for you to continuously mindfully masturbate, to learn about yourself and learn about your changes and what sex phase you're in currently, and introduce variety with your partner sexually. Encourage one another to keep learning and keep being interested and curious about yourself and about each other, so that when new desires do come to mind, or when certain things that happen during sex really turn you on a lot, you talk about it. Even if these are things you've always done. When it comes to sex communication, too many of us get in this habit of only talking about sex when it's not going so well, or only talking about sex when you stopped getting BJs. But you never talked about sex when you really enjoyed the BJ. You never talked about what was your favorite part about it and what made you love it from her so much, right? And this really shapes the trajectory of your sex life, having enough sex positive conversations within your relationship, along with the conflict resolution discussions. They're both important. So going back to the idea of sex phases in life and how at different times in your life, different things turn you on physically and mentally, I can be a perfect example of explaining this because I used to be very much into anal play. It was really my thing, sometimes over vaginal, and that's all I wanted for a while. And then it was like, I'm not that into it anymore. You know, it's just like not doing it for me. I don't know why, I'm just not that into it. And then I went through a phase where I didn't want it at all. And I never felt like it was never gonna be my thing again. I was just like, I'm not feeling it right now. It's just not what turns me on most. There's this other thing that does for now, right? And like, who knows what could happen in the future? And in fact, anal enjoyment came back. So it was this thing that was really strong and it was my favorite thing. And then it shifted to, I don't really want that. I don't want that at all. Okay, let's bring that back in. It's not my favorite still, but I am seeing an enjoyment with it. And if we can do that and not judge ourselves and continue talking to our partners about how our body is right now, that's gonna really help not only strengthen our relationship and our communication, but also strengthen our individual relationship with sex and with our own sexual body. We're gonna have less judgment towards ourselves. We're gonna feel more sexually confident. We're gonna know all these different varieties of pleasuring ourselves, and we're gonna know what to go to if we're like not feeling it for some reason, and we're like, oh, like I'm not enjoying sex that much. Maybe I should go back to this thing and just give that a try and see if that like sparks something back. Because often that works. And too often, men especially feel like they should just know how to be great in bed with every single woman. And that's just not gonna happen. There's no one trick fits all. The trick is be wise enough and be aware enough to have conversations around sex with the woman you're with to understand where she's at. What sex phase in life is she at? You can't just know that. You have to be able to talk to her. You have to be able to read her. You have to be able to have this type of variety play with her. It's never this thing you just go into and you're great at. Because even just talking to a lot of men, I'm a sexologist, I work with just men, so I talk to a lot of men. And hearing so often that they just want to be able to penetrate her to multiple orgasms, and they really just want to do that, and like, I just really want to be able to penetrate her to have multiple orgasms. How do I do that? And I'm like, whoa, is this for her pleasure? Is this for your ego? Because most women don't have multiple orgasms by being penetrated. So what are we really trying to solve? An ego problem or a pleasure problem? What's going on there? When it truly is about her and her pleasure and you really wanting to understand her body, that's when you realize how important communication is to be the best in bed. Not pounding her as hard and as many times as you possibly can. It's not how it's gonna work. So based on my example, you might be like, well, Steph, like women are different. They have like all these ways of receiving pleasure and men don't. We really just wanna have sex and that's it. That's what you've been told. And that's what you continue telling yourself because you've been told that. But that's not true. Even if we look at a blowjob, right? Like there's so many different ways you can receive a blowjob. There's so many different techniques that a woman has probably used on you. And you probably know this because you probably had better blowjob experiences from certain women than others, right? There are different techniques that work better for your body than they do for other guys. That is the truth. I've been with multiple partners who I've given blowjobs to, and I will tell you that different guys like it different ways. Of course, there's the same like ground rules, I guess. Like don't use teeth, right? Like the obvious shit. So there are different ways. Like a partner of mine used to love getting head a certain way. And it was more the rough style, not to get too into detail, but it was more of a rougher style. When I slowed the style down, started off with a certain type of hand job, and then went into a BJ that was slower and more passionate and coming from a place where I was feeling pleasure at the same time, that completely changed the game in terms of how he responded to blowjobs. He even shared that his orgasms were so much more intense. And I could hear, I didn't want to go by just my hearing, but I did notice a shift in a body reaction, a verbal reaction, and then him actually communicating that to me. So obviously, that was a preferred way to receive a blowjob at that point in his life, and it's because I attempted it, I was able to talk to him about it, read his body, give it to him, and then give him more of those, knowing that it's his thing right now. And maybe it won't be his thing in the future, right? Like, that's the whole point of this, is that we have sex phases that change, and it's important to stay in contact with your partner when it comes to your sex life to continue communicating around what phase you're in. What are you currently enjoying pleasure-wise right now, in the body you have right now, in the life circumstances you're dealing with right now? And let's look at it from a more like mental and psychological standpoint too. If you're someone who's dealing with a lot of anxiety, it might be a lot harder for you to relax. You can't have an orgasm unless you relax first. This might mean you're going to need more foreplay at this phase in life due to your stress, added stress, right? To allow you to relax, calm down, and actually start feeling pleasure and get yourself to an orgasm. And what's within that foreplay might mean a really slow massage, a really slow kissing, really slow undressing. Maybe it's touching each other for a while before you go into oral sex, before you get to penetration. Maybe it's going straight to penetration, but it's just slowing everything down, incorporating a little more breathing, incorporating more ways of feeling connected. Maybe it's taking a bath before you have sex and you just go right to penetration. Like whatever works for you, like understand where your body's at, what you need to experience pleasure at this phase in life, and talk to your partner about it. You do not just know this stuff by guessing. Sex is a skill, and it's something that you have to keep up with when it comes to learning about yourself and learning about the partner you're with sexually. So I hope this helped you understand that knowing what really makes you feel good physically and sexually can be the number one factor, not always, but it can be the number one factor to getting you to be more present and more in control during sex. So if you like this video, I'm sure you'll like this one too, or this one, wherever it is. I always forget. See you next time.